you can have a very good analysis of price action, but when it comes to executing your trades, your trade entries are the ones that are killing your trades. You enter and get stopped out most of the times, and I've been there. And in this video we are going to look at entries. This is the simplest entry criteria that I've seen so far. If you're new to the channel, subscribe and let's jump into the video. So let us look at some definitions so that we can be on the same page. Now, levels. Levels are significant areas where price is likely to be at a discount. So that is the high and the low of the month, the week, the day, and the session. M and W patterns are just double tops and double bottoms. And then engulfment candles. An engulfment candle is opposite and larger than the wick and the body of the previous candle. And then lastly, the pump. The pump is an explosive move that has no consolidations. So, if you want to understand the best way to enter, you need to understand the levels and the time. Now, I am looking to trade, if it's in Asia, between 8 and 11 p.m. New York time. Then the London session is 2 to 5 a.m. and the New York time is 8 to 11, and all this is the New York time. Now, also this is a downloadable PDF, so link will be in the description. So yeah, moving on. How do you connect the levels and the time? Now, the first hour of the trading window sets the high and the low of the session and should not be traded. So if you're in the New York session between 8 and 9, don't trade, just observe the price action. Now, draw the high and the low and then compare the level of the high of the session and the high of the day. So it can be the high, it can be the low, depending on your bias on that day. Now, price must come back to that high. So the first hour sets the high and the low of the session. The second hour, price, or the third hour, wait for price to come back to that level. Now, it must come back to that level and also trigger the high or the low of the day. So most of the time you'll find that the high of the session is usually the high of the day. So if that's the case, wait for price to come back to that level. If that's not the case, wait for price to break that high of the session and wait for that price to come back to the high or the low of the day. The reason why we wait for the high of the day to be triggered is because it gives us the confidence that if we get into this setup, there is a big probability that the move will be fueled by big players in the market. You need to also note that if you are trading the New York session, wait for price to come back to that level after 9:30 or at 9:30. Otherwise, you'll find that most of the time it fails if price is before 9:30. So between 9 and 9:30, that's 30-minute section. Treat it like the first hour in the New York session. But in the Asia and London session, the first hour is the first hour. Now, looking for the high, locking the high or the low of the day. Before we execute, we must have a way of knowing that the high has been locked in. And when we enter this trade, the probability of this trade coming back to our stop loss, we need to minimize it or, let it be slim to none. Now, how do you know the high or the low has been locked in? You have to think about how a trend forms. We are creating higher highs or lower lows. Now, once we stop creating higher highs and break structure, then now we have a potential of a reversal. And that is the first thing that we see. We look for breaking structures. So if we are creating higher highs, and we are at the high of the day, we've triggered the high of the day in the second hour, look for a break in structure, because it's the break in structures that is the first signal price might be reversing. Now, moving on to the engulfment. So after we have the break in structure, price needs to give us a retest and then an engulfment candle for our entry. Now, I have a free mentorship program. Link will be in the description. Check it out and let's jump back into the video. This week we were presented with a couple of opportunities. I've taken around 3 or 4 trades so far, and this is how it looks like. So in this case, the Canadian dollar, US dollar, Canadian dollar, we have the first hour. This is in the New York session. The first hour sets the high of the session and the high of the day. Now, you can see that in the second hour, price comes back. In fact, it's the third hour, and breaks out of the high of the day. Now, once we break out, we've triggered liquidity. We know other time frame traders are in the market. And then we have this M pattern with a break in structure. So price went up in that breakout. That small red candle went down. The big engulfment candle going up. Another move up. And then break of structure. And then price gave us a retest but did not give us an engulfment candle. But it continued breaking down, so another break in structure, pullback, and an engulfment candle for the entry for that move down. So it's as simple as that. Another example, this is a trade I took on Monday on the Japanese yen. And you can see that, and this is in the London session. Price creates the high of the session plus the high of the day in the first hour, between 2 and 3 a.m. And then in the second hour, price breaks out and then gives us a nice consolidation, but also gives us an M pattern with a break in structure here. And then a pullback with an engulfment candle. Look at the entry, look at how that trade turned out. Beautiful. Another trade, this was yesterday on the US 100. And this is to show you that you will get into trades and you'll get stopped out, and it's part of the game. So the first hour sets the high of the session. Look at the high of the session and look at the high of the day. We have space, so we are waiting for price to come and break out of that level and also break out of the high of the day. Once price triggered other time frame traders at that level, and we have this M pattern here with a break in structure. Then we got this pullback here, and then this arrow is showing you the engulfment candle. That is the entry. That was the entry. Stops above that one candle, and we got stopped out. So no hard feelings, it's part of the game. And then lastly, looking at the British pound. This was a trade I took yesterday. It was a beautiful trade setup. We have the first hour setting the high of the day and the high of the session. Now, once we have the high of the day, high of the session triggered in the second hour, we have this M pattern with a break in structure, and then price pulled back and gave us an engulfment candle. That was the entry for a nice move. Now, this is just the entry. I've not talked about how I look at the buyers, because you can't just sell at the high or buy at the low for the reason that we are at the high or at the low. There are other aspects that need to come into play. So if you want to learn more about the weekly cycle, you can watch this video here. And if you got value from today's video, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Peace out.